One subject very few of us like to talk about is death, especially our own, and what our lives may look like at the end.
But some doctors and care therapists say it's a very important conversation to have with friends and family, especially for someone who may develop Alzheimer's or dementia. Sherry's here now with a really unique event that's happening later tonight. Sherry.
Thanks, guys. You know, I think an important question for all of us is how many people in your life really know how you'd like to spend your last days, or the answers to tough questions and choices if they had to be made for you? Well, that's the goal of an event called Death Over Dinner, being served at the Cleveland Clinic Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health. The concept is not meant to be morbid, in fact, just the opposite. I spoke with Ruth Almain, who heads up the social work department, and she told me how important and inspiring this meal can be. Talking about coming face to face with our own mortality, it's a very scary topic. And tell me about why discussing it over a meal makes it easier.
Well, the founder of this event really felt like there was a time for many of us where food was involved because these discussions happened on the dinner table with our parents and our grandparents. And so people talked about where they'd be buried, or, you know, what Grandpa liked in his lifetime, and where, you know, how his life ended. So those discussions used to happen more often. Food's tied into a lot of memories for us, for many of us, you know, and some of those are comforting and they're familiar, and they do oftentimes tie us into our family history. Michael
Hebb is the founder of Death Over Dinner. He came up with this several years ago. What started the event?
It actually is based on his own personal experience. He was 10 years old when his father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and once his mom told him that his dad had Alzheimer's, they never talked about it again. And because of their family situation, he had no idea what was going on. He got moved around to different relatives as his mom, and the stress increased with caring for his father. And so out of his own experience about, again, how to make this happen differently for people, and how do we help people talk about these things so that kids, for anybody in the family, again, they get to participate and be actively involved in someone's life as long as possible. Because we know right now there is no cure for Alzheimer's. It is an illness that eventually will be a terminal illness, and because of the way it affects the brain, people lose the ability to make decisions for themselves. They lose the capacity to understand how to make those decisions. So we know that. So when people come in our doors, we want to make sure that they understand that they got to maximize everything about their life right now, including making those decisions, having discussions with their family. What do they want the end of their life to look like, which really is about how are you going to live your life all the way to the last possible minute. Who do you want involved? Where do you want your money to go? Who do you want to be there at the end? What kinds of things are important to you to be able to experience as long as possible? And so there'll be a set of questions at the table, and people will just go around and answer those questions. None of them are particularly scary at all. And they do ask us to reflect on, again, what might be the end of our life like, but also what's most important to us. What are the things we love to do?
What resources are there for people after this event? What do they go home with?
So we'll give people some information when they leave. There'll be a document called the 5 Wishes. And again, helps lead people through a discussion about what are all the kinds of things they might need to consider, to write it down, because again, it's really important, because people will say things all the time to their relatives, like, where I came from in Upper Michigan, they'd say, just put me out on an ice floe. Yeah. And I'd say, that's an advanced care plan, write it down.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Right. But if it's not written down, you know, then sometimes people fight in those moments. I mean, there's all these things that, again, you want to try to avoid and give your family that gift.
There is a lot of peace of mind that goes with planning for your end of life. And Ruth says the food just keeps coming at this event, like it did when her mom cooked a meal. Guests will also leave with resources like information on working up a will or a trust with an attorney, hospice care, Cleveland Clinic programs, Nevada Senior Services, Alzheimer's Association programs, and more. There are tools online on how to make an advanced care plan. The event costs up to $75. There's a sliding scale fee. They don't want to scare anybody away with the price of the event. You sit down with people you came with, and also you sit down with people you don't know, so that you can share with strangers, and that's very important too, just to kind of get to know people and maybe get a new perspective on what other people's wishes are.
Share some stories.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And making something that can seem really scary to talk about a little bit easier and getting some good information.
Yeah, and more inspiring on how making the most of your days
Yeah.
and living your life to the fullest.
Yeah.
I have to give a shout out to my mother-in-law because she had figured all of this out. She knew what she wanted to do. She sat down with my wife for the last couple of years of her life. They planned it all out. I think that's rare. I don't think most people do that, but it is an inspiration that if you know what's going to happen and you know what you want to happen, you got to do things to make that happen.
It makes it so much easier for the people who are left
Yeah.
behind.
Oh, it was
takes the burden off of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So an interesting event, and there are still
Wow.
tickets available. So if you'd like to check it out, we'll
That's
have the
nice.
link online.
A good way to have
Thanks,
a hard
Sherry. Good
conversation.
job.
There you go.